What if I told you that the life you are living is just one page in an infinite book, and every single choice you've ever made, big or small, created a new branching story where another version of you is living out the consequences? What if the solid, predictable world you see around you, the chair you're sitting in, the screen you're looking at, is a masterfully constructed illusion, a single, stable note plucked from a deafening orchestra of infinite chaos? This isn't science fiction. This is the deepest, most unsettling, and ultimately most empowering truth our best science has uncovered about the nature of reality. Today we're not just going to look at the universe, we're going to look into the quantum mirror. And what you see looking back might just be the architect of everything you experience. Let's start with a fact that should keep you up at night. According to the fundamental rules that govern existence, your entire reality should not be stable. It shouldn't be solid. It should be a shimmering, chaotic blur of every single possibility happening all at once. Every tiny particle that makes up your body, your home, and your world, the electrons in your atoms, the photons of light hitting your eyes, exists in a state called superposition. This is a scientifically verified reality, where a particle is not in one place, but in all possible places simultaneously. It's not spinning left or right. It's spinning in every direction at once. The mathematics that flawlessly predicts the behavior of these particles, the math that gave us the computer chip and the laser, is known as quantum mechanics. One of its most profound and logical conclusions is the many worlds interpretation. This theory suggests that when a quantum particle in superposition is observed and forced to choose a single state, for instance, to be here instead of there, the other possibilities don't just vanish into thin air. That would violate the fundamental laws of physics. Instead, reality itself splits. A new universe, a new timeline, branches off where that other outcome happened. This isn't happening just once in a while. It's happening an infinite number of times, every fraction of a second, for every particle in the cosmos. So this leads to the ultimate dilemma. If countless parallel universes are being born from every quantum event, why is your world so stubbornly singular and solid? Why do you remember only one past? Why do you experience only one present? The answer lies in a process as elegant as it is terrifying, a cosmic magic trick that makes your reality possible. It's called quantum decoherence. Think of decoherence as the universe's ultimate magician. Its one and only job is to take that infinite, chaotic storm of parallel worlds and perform the ultimate disappearing act, making all but one of them invisible to you. It doesn't destroy them, but it hides them in plain sight, ensuring that your reality remains coherent, stable, and sane. Without this cosmic magician, your consciousness would be an unsolvable paradox, and your life an impossible dream. To truly grasp how this cosmic sleight of hand works, let's imagine a simple quantum coin. While it's unobserved, it's not heads or tails. It's in a perfect superposition of both heads and tails at the same time. If this coin existed in a perfect, absolute vacuum, a void with nothing else in it, it could theoretically spin in this state of infinite possibility forever. It would be a perfect representation of the raw, untamed quantum world. But the moment you place that coin in the real world, everything changes. It is no longer alone. It is instantly bombarded by billions upon billions of tiny observers. Molecules of air bump into it. Particles of light, photons, bounce off its surface. The gravitational pull of the Earth tugs on it. Each and every one of these interactions, no matter how small, is a form of measurement. The environment itself is constantly looking at the coin. This relentless interaction is the trigger for decoherence. The delicate, fragile superposition is shattered in an instant. The environment essentially forces the coin to pick a side. But here is the crucial part. The other worlds, the other outcomes, don't get destroyed. The world where the coin landed tails doesn't just evaporate. Instead, that tails world becomes entangled with its own unique environment. The specific air molecules that bounced off the tails coin now carry the information of that outcome. The photons that struck it are now imprinted with a tails reality. Think of it like having a radio that can tune into billions of stations at once. In its pure quantum state, you hear every station simultaneously, a chaotic, meaningless wall of noise. Decoherence is the act of tuning the dial. When you tune to 101.5 FM, the other stations don't cease to exist. You haven't destroyed their signals. You have simply isolated your receiver to one specific frequency, and all the others have become imperceptible background static. They are still broadcasting, but they can no longer interfere with your chosen station. This process of decoherence happens on a timescale that is almost incomprehensibly fast, in femtoseconds. A femtosecond is to a second what a second is to about 31.7 million years. It is faster than a chemical reaction, faster than your brain can fire a single neuron, faster than a conscious thought. Before you can even begin to perceive the coin, the universe has already tuned your reality to a single, stable frequency, locking you into either the heads timeline or the tails timeline, making the other one completely inaccessible. This is the constant, silent process that builds your solid reality out of the phantom foam of quantum probability. Now let's place you, the conscious observer, back into the heart of this cosmic drama. The implications of decoherence become truly mind-boggling when you realize your role in it. You are not just a passive passenger watching the movie of the universe unfold. Every single act of observation you perform, from the mundane to the profound, makes you an active, powerful participant in the constant splitting of reality. Let's go back to that quantum coin. When it finally settles and you look down to see the result, you are not simply discovering a pre-existing outcome. In that precise moment of your observation, you are becoming fundamentally entangled with the outcome you see. If you see the coin has landed on heads, one version of your consciousness, your body, your memories, your very existence, becomes inextricably linked with the heads universe. But in that exact same instant, another version of you, absolutely identical in every way up to that moment, looks down and sees tails. That version of you becomes entangled with the tails universe. Decoherence then acts like a cosmic security guard. The moment the split occurs, it erects an impenetrable firewall between these two versions of you. The you who saw heads can now only interact with the environment that saw heads. The you who saw tails is forever locked into the timeline where tails was the outcome. From your perspective, inside your branch of reality, it feels like only one thing happened. The alternative seems like it was never even a possibility. But in truth, you are not just living one life. You are living them all. You are constantly, with every observation and every choice, selecting which single branch of the quantum multiverse you get to consciously experience. That decision you made to take a different route to work this morning? There is a version of you who stuck to the old route and is living a slightly different day because of it. That phone call you decided not to make? A branching timeline was created where you did make it, and a version of you is dealing with the consequences or reaping the rewards. You are a reality splitter. Every glance, every touch, every thought that solidifies into a decision is an act of creation. The creation of a unique, isolated timeline that one specific version of your consciousness will ride into the future. Meanwhile, an infinite number of your twins are doing the exact same thing, embarking on their own parallel journeys down the endless corridors of the multiverse. This might sound like a wild philosophical fantasy, but it is anything but. This branching multiverse is not a fringe theory. It is the most direct and logical consequence of the fundamental mathematics that powers our entire modern world. The foundational equation of quantum mechanics, the Schrödinger equation, is one of the most successful and rigorously tested theories in the history of science. It describes how quantum systems evolve over time. And when you follow its predictions without adding any artificial breaks, it naturally and inevitably describes a universe that is constantly splitting into a multitude of coexisting states. Decoherence is the missing piece of the puzzle that explains why we don't perceive this multiverse. It provides the mathematical mechanism for how the quantum connections, the interference, between these parallel worlds decay at an exponentially fast rate. And this isn't just a theory. Scientists have directly measured and even controlled this process in laboratory settings. In labs around the world, physicists create highly isolated quantum systems, shielding them from environmental noise, like stray heat, light, and vibrations. In these controlled environments, they can preserve the state of superposition, the quantum weirdness, for much longer periods. They can watch a particle be in two places at once, but the moment they intentionally introduce environmental noise, exposing the system to outside interactions, they can watch in real time as decoherence takes hold, and classical, predictable behavior emerges. The particle instantly chooses a single location. The reason we trust in the existence of these invisible worlds is because the very same mathematical framework that predicts them also gave us the technologies that define our age. The laser in your Blu-ray player works because of principles derived from quantum mechanics. The transistors that make up the computer chip in your phone or laptop rely on the quantum behavior of electrons. The MRI machine that can see inside the human body is a direct application of quantum physics. We are, in a sense, living in a house built on a quantum foundation. We trust the engineering of the upper floors, our technology. So we must also trust the blueprint of the foundation, even if that blueprint describes a reality far stranger and vaster than our everyday senses can comprehend. Decoherence elegantly solves the greatest mystery of physics, the measurement problem, or why the quantum world of probabilities looks so fundamentally different from the classical world of certainties that we experience. The answer is that our world is the quantum world. We just only get to see one channel at a time. Let's bring this down to a very human, very simple act: walking across a room. In your conscious experience, this is a straightforward event. You decide to go from point A to point B, and your body executes a series of movements to create one single, definite path. You remember that one path. You experienced that one path. To you, it is the only thing that happened. But from the perspective of quantum mechanics, what happened was infinitely more complex and bizarre. In the language of the universe, you did not take a single path. You simultaneously took every possible path to get from point A to point B. There was a version of your quantum self that walked in a perfectly straight line. There was another that took a slightly curved path to the left. Another zigzagged. Another stopped halfway to tie a shoe that wasn't even untied. There were even wildly improbable, but not impossible, paths where your particles tunneled through the air and you essentially teleported to your destination. Every single one of these paths existed as a real, physical possibility within your quantum wave function. So why on earth do you only experience the most logical, energy-efficient, straight-line path? The answer, once again, is decoherence, acting as a cosmic filter for probability. As you move, you are not walking through a vacuum. You are interacting with the environment in countless ways every nanosecond. You displace billions of air molecules. Trillions of photons from the room's light source bounce off your body. The floor pushes back on your feet. Each of these interactions is an act of measurement. The environment is constantly witnessing your position. These countless environmental witnesses act to reinforce certain paths and cancel out others. The bizarre, illogical paths, the one where you zigzagged for no reason, quickly fall out of phase with each other and are filtered out by decoherence. They represent trajectories that are inconsistent with the surrounding environment. The path of least resistance, the most probable and classically logical trajectory, is the one that gets overwhelmingly reinforced by these environmental interactions. It's this path that survives the filtering process and emerges as your single classical experience. But here is the truly staggering part. Every single one of those alternate paths, even the most absurd ones, represents a fully realized universe. In another branch of the multiverse, a version of you did experience that strange, zigzagging journey. In an even more distant branch, another you is trying to figure out how they just teleported across the room. Your simple walk was, in fact, an act of navigating an infinite labyrinth of possibilities, with decoherence acting as your silent, invisible guide, ensuring you only experienced the most well-trodden path. This constant filtering process reveals something incredibly profound about the very nature of what we call the laws of physics. We tend to think of them as immutable, ironclad rules that govern all of existence. We think of gravity, the speed of light, and the laws of thermodynamics as fundamental constants written into the fabric of the cosmos. But the many worlds perspective suggests something different. These laws may not be absolute rules, but rather the most probable and stable outcomes that have survived in our particular branch of reality. This leads to a fascinating concept called quantum Darwinism. Think about it in terms of biological evolution. Nature doesn't have a rule book that says which animals get to exist. Instead, organisms with traits best suited to their environment are more likely to survive and reproduce. Over eons, this process of natural selection gives rise to stable, well-adapted species. Quantum Darwinism proposes a similar mechanism for reality itself. When the universe splits, it creates countless branches with slightly different properties. In some of these branches, the fundamental constants might be subtly different. Perhaps gravity is a little weaker, or the speed of light is a fraction slower. In more chaotic branches, the laws of physics might be wildly inconsistent, where gravity works backwards on Tuesdays, or cause and effect are reversed. According to quantum Darwinism, decoherence acts as the selection pressure. Universes that are stable, predictable, and self-consistent are the ones that are fittest. They are more likely to persist and give rise to complex structures like stars, planets, and eventually, observers like us. The illogical or contradictory branches of reality are inherently unstable. They would likely decohere into oblivion more rapidly or collapse under their own inconsistencies, effectively editing themselves out of the accessible multiverse. So, the laws of physics that we observe are not necessarily the only possible laws. They are simply the habits of a universe that has proven to be stable and resilient. We find ourselves in this particular branch of reality for the same reason that fish find themselves in water. It's the environment where beings like us could evolve in the first place. We are the survivors of a cosmic evolutionary process, living in a reality that won the ultimate survival of the fittest contest. One of the deepest mysteries in all of physics is the arrow of time. At the microscopic level, the equations of physics are time-symmetric. They work just as well forwards as they do backwards. A video of two particles colliding would look just as plausible if you played it in reverse. Yet, in our macroscopic world, time flows stubbornly in only one direction. Eggs break but never unbreak. People grow old but never grow young. We remember the past, but not the future. Why? Decoherence provides a stunning and elegant explanation. The process of decoherence, of a quantum system interacting with its environment and its information leaking out, is inherently irreversible. Think of a single drop of ink falling into a glass of water. At first, the system is ordered and simple. Water here, ink there. This is a state of low entropy and low entanglement. As the ink spreads and mixes, its information gets scrambled and entangled with the trillions of water molecules. The system becomes disordered and complex. This process of increasing entanglement is what we experience as the forward flow of time. You could never unscramble that ink, regathering every single molecule back into a perfect drop, without an impossible amount of energy and information. It would violate the second law of thermodynamics, which states that the total entropy, disorder of an isolated system can only increase over time. Decoherence is the second law of thermodynamics in action at the quantum level. The past is the past because it represents a state of lower entanglement, where decoherence has already occurred and locked in a specific set of outcomes. Your memories are nothing more than neural patterns in your brain that have been stabilized and fixed into place by these past decoherence events. They are the fossilized records of which reality branches you have traveled down. The future, on the other hand, remains a realm of pure potential, a superposition of all possible outcomes, precisely because its corresponding decoherence events have not yet happened. Your future neural patterns have not yet been stabilized. Time, therefore, flows from a state of known, decohered information, the past, to a state of high entanglement and unknown quantum potential, the future. The arrow of time is not a fundamental property of the universe, but an emergent property of information being lost or rather shared with the environment. It is the irreversible echo of countless quantum possibilities collapsing into one classical reality. Every single thing you perceive through your senses, the light you see, the sounds you hear, the objects you touch, is a highly edited, heavily filtered version of reality, carefully curated for you by the process of decoherence. Your brain has evolved to interpret this post-decoherence information as the complete and total picture, but it is blind to the seething, chaotic ocean of quantum possibilities from which that picture emerged. Consider the simple act of looking at your reflection in a mirror. You see a single, stable, coherent image of yourself. It seems straightforward, but in the quantum realm, what is actually happening is almost beyond belief. For you to see your face, photons of light must travel from a light source, bounce off your face, travel to the mirror, and then bounce from the mirror into your eyes. Quantum mechanics tells us that these photons do not take one single path. They take every conceivable path simultaneously. There are photons that travel in a straight line, as classical physics would expect. But there are also photons that take wildly circuitous routes, bouncing off the walls and ceiling first. There are even photons that, according to some interpretations, travel backward in time from your eye to the mirror, then to your face, to ensure the path is complete. You are being bombarded by an infinite amount of contradictory visual information. So why do you see a single, clear reflection? Decoherence acts as the ultimate art director. It filters out all the bizarre, improbable, and out-of-phase paths. The photons that took illogical routes cancel each other out through a process of wave interference. The only paths that survive this ruthless editing process are the ones that are geometrically consistent, the ones that add up to create a coherent image. The same is true for every other sense. The solid feeling of the chair beneath you is just the most probable outcome selected from an infinite sea of quantum interactions between the atoms of your body and the atoms of the chair. The clear sound of a loved one's voice is the result of decoherence, filtering the chaotic superposition of air molecule vibrations into a single, stable waveform that your ear can interpret. Your entire sensory experience is a classical illusion, a beautifully rendered user interface for a reality that is, at its core, an infinite storm of information. Your brain did not evolve to perceive raw quantum reality. It evolved to perceive the results of decoherence. This is why the world feels so solid and predictable. You are not seeing the world as it is. You are seeing the one version of it that survived the cosmic filter. This profound filtering process doesn't stop at the external world. It extends deep into the very core of your being, into your thoughts, your memories, and your sense of self. Every single neuron in your brain operates on quantum principles. The firing of a synapse, the movement of ions across a membrane, these are all physical processes governed by the strange rules of the quantum world. This means that your consciousness itself can be seen as the classical shadow, cast by an unimaginably complex web of quantum information processing that is occurring across multiple realities simultaneously. This idea completely shatters the conventional notion of a single, continuous self. The you that is reading this sentence right now is the result of one specific stabilized pattern of decoherence in the neurons of your brain. But for every thought you have, for every mental path you choose not to take, a different branch of reality is created where another version of you is having that alternate thought. Think about a moment of indecision. You're weighing two choices. For a brief moment, your mind exists in a superposition of both possibilities. When you finally make a choice, your brain's quantum state decoheres, locking you into one classical thought pattern. In that instant, another version of you, in a parallel universe, becomes locked into the other choice. That version is equally real, has all your memories up to that point, and is absolutely convinced that they are the real you. So how do we maintain a stable identity? How do we feel like a continuous person who flows seamlessly from one moment to the next? A kind of quantum self-consistency principle seems to emerge. Realities where your newly formed thoughts and memories drastically contradict your past experiences would be highly unstable. Imagine a branch where you suddenly remember being a completely different person. The cognitive dissonance would be so great that such a branch might be neurologically and psychologically unstable, causing it to decohere less effectively or be pruned from your conscious experience. Decoherence, therefore, not only constructs your external reality, but also curates your internal one. It leaves only the branches where your sense of self feels logical, coherent, and continuous. Your identity is a story, a narrative thread woven through the tapestry of the multiverse, constantly being edited and reinforced to make sense from one moment to the next. If every choice you make is simply a quantum process splitting reality into different branches, what does that mean for the cherished concept of free will? Are we just helpless passengers on a branching track with no real control over which path we take? Some physicists and philosophers believe the opposite might be true. Your consciousness may not be a passive byproduct of this process, but an active participant that can genuinely influence the process of decoherence. This reframes free will not as a magical ability to violate the laws of physics, but as a fundamental force of nature that can bias quantum probabilities. How could this work? The key may lie in the power of focused attention and intention. When your mind is scattered and unfocused, the quantum processes in your brain might decohere randomly, leading to a more or less predictable, probabilistic reality. But when you focus your consciousness, when you hold a clear intention, a vivid visualization, or a deep-seated belief, you might be able to create a more coherent quantum state in your own neural network. This coherent state could then, in turn, influence the decoherence of the external world, making it more likely for you to experience a reality branch that aligns with your focused desire. This provides a stunningly plausible scientific framework for phenomena that have long been dismissed as pseudoscience, such as the placebo effect. The placebo effect is a documented medical reality, where a person's powerful belief that a sugar pill will heal them can produce a genuine physiological recovery. In this quantum model, the patient's coherent, focused intention to heal could be actively biasing the quantum probabilities within their own body toward a branch of reality where healing occurs. This also applies to spontaneous remissions from disease or the incredible feats of mind over matter demonstrated by trained monks. Practices like meditation and visualization in this light are not just mental exercises for relaxation. They may be powerful techniques for actively manipulating the quantum structure of your reality. By calming the noise of random thoughts, you might be reducing the rate of chaotic decoherence, and by focusing on a desired outcome, you might be stabilizing the quantum state corresponding to that outcome, increasing its probability of becoming your classical experience. Your will, your focus, is a reality selection tool. A quantum theory of consciousness can also shed light on some of the most profound neurological mysteries that have long baffled scientists. Take general anesthesia, for example. We know which chemicals cause it, but on a fundamental level, we don't fully understand how it switches consciousness off and on like a light. From a quantum perspective, anesthesia may not be shutting down the brain's activity so much as it is disrupting the delicate quantum coherence needed for integrated global awareness. The drug might be introducing so much noise into the neural system that it forces each part of the brain to decohere independently, shattering the unified classical self into a sea of disconnected quantum information, effectively rendering you unconscious. Conversely, psychedelic substances like psilocybin or DMT might do the opposite. They may work by temporarily interfering with the brain's normal, rigid decoherence patterns. Our brains have evolved a reducing valve, as Aldous Huxley called it, to filter out the overwhelming flood of information from the quantum realm. Psychedelics might temporarily open that valve. By loosening the grip of the brain's decoherence filters, your consciousness may be able to perceive fleeting glimpses of raw quantum information or experience interference from parallel branches of reality. This could manifest as the bizarre, ego-dissolving, but often deeply profound and meaningful experiences reported by users, a momentary perception of the multiverse in its unfiltered state. This line of thinking leads us to the most startling and controversial implication of the many worlds theory: quantum immortality. This is not the idea that your physical body will live forever. Instead, it is a thought experiment about the nature of subjective first-person experience. The theory goes like this: since your consciousness exists across all non-zero probability branches of the multiverse, it would, from its own perspective, always continue in whatever branches remain viable. In any situation that involves a chance of death, there will always be some incredibly improbable, but not impossible, branches where you survive. There's a branch where the assassin's gun misfires, another where the car crash is a near miss, another where the terminal illness goes into spontaneous remission. From an outside observer's point of view, your death in any given timeline is a real possibility. But from your subjective point of view, you can only ever experience the timelines where you continue to exist. The versions of you that die simply cease to have a conscious experience in that branch. Their story ends. But your personal continuous stream of awareness will always, by definition, follow the path of the survivors. This means that, from your own perspective, you would appear to be incredibly, impossibly lucky, surviving increasingly improbable scenarios as you age, forever finding yourself on the timeline where the coin of fate landed in your favor. You would, in a sense, experience a form of immortality, forever waking up in the universe that allowed you to wake up. There is a concept in cosmology known as the anthropic principle, which attempts to answer the question, why is the universe so perfectly suited for life? The constants of physics, the strength of gravity, the charge of an electron seem to be exquisitely fine-tuned. If any of them were off by even a minuscule amount, stars, planets, and life as we know it could not exist. The principle suggests that the answer is simple. We find ourselves in a universe capable of supporting life, because observers like us could not possibly exist in universes that couldn't. There might be countless other universes with different laws, but they are sterile and unwitnessed. Decoherence and the many worlds theory extend this principle to every single moment of your existence. You don't just find yourself in a life-friendly universe. You constantly find yourself experiencing a reality that makes sense. You experience a coherent, logical world because decoherence is actively and relentlessly filtering out all the inconsistent, chaotic, and nonsensical branches of reality. A universe where you suddenly start floating in your room, or where your memories are of a past that never happened, would be filtered out by the self-consistency pressure of decoherence. This creates a profound and powerful feedback loop. Your conscious observations influence which quantum states become locked into classical reality, and that newly created classical reality, in turn, shapes and influences your future observations. You are not a creature that simply lives in the universe. You are engaged in an ongoing, collaborative dance of creation, a constant dialogue between mind and matter. The universe is shaping you, and with every glance, every choice, and every thought, you are shaping the universe you experience. You are not just a witness to the unfolding of reality, you are a co-author of the story. The journey continues in the next response due to character limits. To truly appreciate the gift of decoherence, let's engage in a brief thought experiment. Imagine, for just a moment, a life without it. Imagine a world where the quantum filter was switched off, and you were exposed to the raw, untamed multiverse. You would wake up in the morning not with one set of memories, but with a shimmering, overlapping cascade of memories from every possible version of your previous day. You would simultaneously remember turning left and turning right, accepting the job offer and rejecting it, kissing the person goodnight, and walking away in anger. Your consciousness would not be a single stream, but a raging, chaotic ocean of contradictory information from countless timelines, all vying for your attention at once. How could you make a decision? The very concept of a choice would be meaningless, as you would experience the outcome of every option simultaneously. Your body itself would be a blur of probabilities. One moment you'd be in the kitchen, the next in the bedroom, and both at the same time. The human brain, a magnificent organ that evolved to navigate and find patterns in a classical world, simply could not process infinite realities at once. It would be the definition of insanity, a total and complete breakdown of coherent thought and identity. Looked at this way, the rate of decoherence in our universe appears to be a form of cosmic fine-tuning in itself. It seems to be perfectly calibrated for the emergence of consciousness. If it were too slow, our reality would be an overwhelming quantum chaos, a psychedelic storm from which no stable minds could ever emerge. If it were too fast, it might erase the subtle quantum effects that are necessary for the complex chemistry that underpins biology and life itself. We live in a Goldilocks universe where the veil between worlds is just thick enough to allow us to have a single coherent experience, but just thin enough to allow for the quantum weirdness that makes existence possible in the first place. This leads us to one of the most profound chicken or egg questions in all of science. Did the universe happen to evolve these specific properties of decoherence by chance, and consciousness later evolved to fit within those pre-existing rules? Or, in a far more radical view, did consciousness and the universe's properties somehow co-evolve? Are mind and matter two sides of the same coin, locked in a cosmic dance from the very beginning? While it's still on the cutting edge of theoretical physics, some puzzling laboratory results have hinted that the connection might be deeper than we imagine. Experiments like the quantum Zeno effect have shown that the very act of repeatedly observing a quantum system can prevent it from changing its state, as if the observer's attention can freeze reality in place. Some have even suggested that conscious, focused observation can directly influence the rate of decoherence itself. This opens up a tantalizing possibility that different states of mind might interact with quantum systems differently. Think of a scattered, anxious, and chaotic mind. It's a state of high internal entropy. Such a mind might accelerate decoherence, introducing more noise into the system and locking you more firmly into a predictable, probabilistic, and often repetitive reality. It's why when you're stressed, life can feel like you're stuck in a loop of the same negative outcomes. Now consider a calm, centered, and focused state of awareness, like that achieved in deep meditation. This is a state of low internal entropy, of high coherence. Is it possible that such a state of mind could slow down decoherence, preserving the quantum coherence in your own neural system, and even in your immediate environment? By maintaining this state of heightened potential, You might allow for more creative, unexpected, and novel possibilities to manifest in your experience. You might be opening a wider door to the quantum realm, allowing you to access solutions and outcomes that would be filtered out by a more chaotic mind. If an individual's consciousness can influence reality on a small scale, what happens when you scale that up? The collective consciousness of humanity, billions of minds all observing and participating in reality, could be creating planetary-scale decoherence patterns. When billions of people focus their attention on a single, shared event, a global crisis, a world-changing election, a moment of international celebration, their combined observational power could be immense. Their collective entangled focus might be powerfully influencing which version of our global reality becomes actualized for everyone. This could be a physical mechanism behind the idea of a zeitgeist, or spirit of the times. This concept could offer a quantum explanation for historical curiosities that have long puzzled us. Why do major scientific discoveries and inventions so often occur to multiple unconnected researchers at roughly the same time? We call it simultaneous invention, but perhaps it's a sign that once a problem is intensely focused on by a collective, the quantum information of a potential solution propagates across multiple reality branches, becoming accessible to many sensitive minds at once. How do cultural movements or social changes seem to spread with an impossible viral speed, faster than can be explained by traditional models of information transmission? Perhaps under certain conditions of shared emotional resonance, human minds can become temporarily entangled. This could allow insights, ideas, and emotional states to propagate through subtle quantum channels that operate outside of and much faster than classical communication like speech or text. We might be more connected on a fundamental quantum level than we have ever dared to imagine. If this deep connection between consciousness and quantum reality is real, then we are on the precipice of a technological revolution that will make the digital age look like the Stone Age. We may be on the verge of developing technologies that can interface with reality at this fundamental level. Imagine a future where computers don't respond to keyboards or voice commands, but to your pure, conscious intention. Imagine prosthetic limbs that are not just mechanically wired to your nervous system, but quantumly entangled with your mind, allowing you to control them with the same seamless fluidity as a natural limb. Think of the implications for medicine, particularly mental health. If conditions like depression or anxiety are, at their root, dysfunctional decoherence patterns in the brain's quantum information processing, we could develop treatments that work by retuning and rebalancing this process directly. This would be a form of medicine that heals the mind at the very foundation of its structure. We might even be able to create controlled decoherence environments, chambers shielded from environmental noise, that allow us to temporarily and safely access the quantum information that is normally filtered out. Stepping into such a space could unlock latent human abilities that seem superhuman by today's standards. You could potentially access enhanced memory by tapping into the less decohered information of your past, sharpen your intuition by perceiving a wider range of quantum probabilities, or solve intractable problems by accessing the superposition of all possible solutions at once. We would, in essence, be learning to hack the source code of our own reality. It's important to remember that decoherence isn't like a digital on-off switch. It's not an instantaneous event, but a rapid, cascading process. This means there are incredibly brief transition windows, fleeting, femtosecond moments, where the boundaries between parallel realities are temporarily thin and porous before they are fully sealed off. In these fleeting moments, it's possible that information could leak or tunnel between adjacent branches of the multiverse. This could provide a stunningly elegant physical explanation for many uncanny human experiences that we've all felt but have never been able to explain. Have you ever experienced déjà vu? That eerie, inexplicable feeling that you have lived this exact moment before? Perhaps it's not just a neurological glitch. It could be a brief, momentary glimpse into a nearly identical parallel branch, where the event unfolded a fraction of a second ahead of your own timeline. A momentary crosstalk between two very similar realities. What about premonitions, or sudden flashes of intuition that turn out to be true? This could be quantum information about a highly probable future event leaking across the reality boundaries before decoherence has fully isolated the timelines, giving you a faint, intuitive preview of what's to come. And where does true creative inspiration come from? When a musician hears a fully formed symphony in their head, or a scientist has a eureka moment that solves a problem in a completely novel way, we say it comes from nowhere. But perhaps it comes from everywhere. The solution, the melody, the idea, may already exist in superposition across a multitude of possible realities. In a moment of focused, coherent thought, the artist or scientist may be briefly accessing this field of potential, downloading a piece of information that has already been actualized in a parallel branch. If information can leak between realities, it implies that the boundaries separating the infinite versions of you are not absolute. They are more like permeable membranes than impenetrable walls. This leads to an astonishing possibility that could explain the rare and baffling phenomenon of sudden genius, or acquired savant syndrome, where people often, after a head injury or a profound neurological event, suddenly demonstrate expert skills they never learned. There are documented cases of individuals who suddenly gain the ability to play a musical instrument flawlessly or perform complex mathematical calculations without any prior training. These might be extremely rare but powerful instances of cross-reality information transfer. In such a case, the individual might be briefly and accidentally accessing the neural information and muscle memory of a parallel self, a version of them who devoted their entire life to mastering that specific ability. For a moment, the knowledge of the concert pianist you could have been bleeds into the reality of the you that you are. This principle could also apply on a collective scale. As we discussed, when multiple inventors discover the same technology at the same time, it may not be a coincidence. It could be that the quantum information corresponding to that solution is propagating across multiple branches, where different researchers, with different methods, were all approaching the same final answer. The idea itself wants to be discovered, and it leaks into the minds most prepared to receive it. This potential for information leakage holds the most profound and empowering implication of all: the role of your intention. If your mental and emotional state can influence the permeability of these quantum boundaries, even slightly, then you have a direct hand in shaping your reality. Practices like focused visualization and maintaining a positive, expectant mindset are not just forms of psychological self-help. They may have a genuine scientific basis. By consistently and coherently focusing your attention on a specific desired outcome, you may be increasing the probability of experiencing a reality branch where that outcome occurs. Think of it like this. During those brief, chaotic transition moments of decoherence, your focused intention acts like a tuning fork. It creates a resonant frequency. This resonance makes you more susceptible to information leakage from parallel realities that are vibrating at a similar frequency, realities where your goal has already been achieved. It subtly biases the odds in your favor, making it more likely that your consciousness will follow the timeline that is the closest match to your sustained mental state. This elevates your thoughts from mere subjective internal experiences to an active force of participation in the universe. Your thoughts are not just about your world. They are a direct input into the system that selects which version of the world emerges from the infinite quantum foam of possibility into your single, classical actuality. You are not just a sailor on the sea of reality. You are a hand on the rudder. Just when you think reality couldn't get any stranger, quantum mechanics introduces a concept that twists our understanding of time and causality into a pretzel: retrocausality, or the idea that future events can influence the past. Experiments like the quantum eraser have shown that a measurement performed on a particle in the future can retroactively determine the properties that particle had in the past. This doesn't mean you can send a message back in time to change history in a grandfather paradox sense. It's far more subtle. It suggests that the universe operates on a principle of global self-consistency, ensuring that the entire timeline, from beginning to end, makes sense as a coherent whole. What does this mean for you? The decision you are about to make, the very next choice that is forming in your mind, has, in a certain sense, already sent ripples backward through time via quantum channels. It has influenced the decoherence patterns and quantum probabilities that led you to this very moment, sitting here, reading these words. This does not mean the future is predetermined and you have no choice. It means you are participating in a dynamic temporal feedback loop. Your future intentions, your goals, and your desires are actively helping to shape the past probabilities that make your present reality possible. The you of the future is reaching back to help guide the you of the present. It means that the universe is not just a story that is being written, but a story that is constantly editing itself to be as coherent and meaningful as possible, and you are holding the pen. The quantum multiverse may be infinitely more complex and wondrous than just a collection of parallel timelines branching off from choice points. The complex mathematics of decoherence patterns could theoretically create recursive loops forming what might be called nested reality matrices, entire universes existing within universes like Russian nesting dolls, each with its own unique set of physical laws and properties that have decohered in a different way. Within these isolated bubbles of space-time, evolution could have taken wildly different paths, producing forms of consciousness that are completely alien to our biological, carbon-based awareness. Imagine beings of pure mathematical information, living within a universe structured like a geometric equation. Imagine a planetary hive mind where consciousness is not located in individuals, but is an emergent property of an entire civilization. These nested realities, though separate, might still be connected to ours through subtle quantum channels, like faint radio signals bleeding through from another frequency. If so, what we perceive as moments of genius, divine inspiration, or profound spiritual insight could, in some cases, be downloads of information from these more advanced or simply different forms of awareness. The solutions to our greatest problems, disease, conflict, energy, may have already been solved countless times in these other realms, and the answers may be waiting in the quantum foam for a mind that is tuned to the right frequency to receive them. At the end of this long, strange journey into the heart of reality, we arrive at a breathtaking conclusion. Quantum decoherence is not a flaw or a limitation. It is the universe's elegant, ingenious solution to an impossible problem: how to create stable, meaningful, conscious experience out of an infinite, chaotic quantum storm. Decoherence is the cosmic artist that chisels a single, beautiful sculpture out of an infinite block of marble. You are an active, essential participant in this ongoing act of creation. Your consciousness, your attention, your focus, your intention, is a tool that helps to select which branch of the infinite multiverse you will personally inhabit. The parallel worlds, the infinite other versions of you, remain hidden not because they are less real, but because their very separation is the necessary condition that makes your singular, precious experience of awareness possible. You are the universe discovering its own nature, one timeline at a time. You are a single point of light, but you are part of an infinite, shimmering diamond of possibility. So the next time you look in the mirror, don't just see a person. See a reality splitter. See a co-creator of the cosmos. See the one version of you who gets to experience this incredible moment, chosen from an infinity of others. The greatest lesson from this story is that your experience is not random. Your focus matters. Your beliefs matter. Your intention is a physical force. You have more power and are part of a much grander, more mysterious, and more magnificent story than you have ever been told. Use that power wisely. Choose the reality you wish to inhabit, and then live it with intention. What do you think? Which part of this journey into the quantum realm resonated with you the most? Have you ever had an experience, a moment of déjà vu, a strange coincidence, a flash of inspiration, that makes you wonder if you felt a glimpse of these other worlds? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the deepest nature of reality. I wish you health, happiness, and a life filled with conscious, intentional creation. And if you enjoyed this journey and want to continue questioning the nature of everything, please consider subscribing to the channel. There's so much more to discover together.